Hi, Magnus. First of all, thank you for taking some time and coming here today. Let's start off talking about you as a leader. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of what's important to you as a leader? What shapes you as a leader? What defines you as a leader?
Yeah, it's a broad question, Tom.
Very broad question.
I really took on my first leadership position back in 2005 when I was taking on a bigger team for the first time. So
right.
Around 15 years. And I think from me, from a leadership perspective, what really makes a difference and what makes it meaningful is when you come into a situation, you try to analyze the situation. Where are we as a company? Where are we as a team? Setting targets based on a strategy, and then you build a team and really work together then to achieve or hopefully exceed the targets. And I think that is really what is making leadership meaningful. If you do that then under a strong purpose, I think that really adds different dimension as well.
But your way of engaging your team is actually quite interesting because you actually go beyond the team. You go beyond the team to the organization. And you actually are you seem to be very important to you to not just focus on the team, but how do we listen to and learn from a broader audience in the organization? Where does that come from?
Well, I think I have a genuine interest in people, but I also like to not only be at 30,000 feet, but also to really get into the front line of the organization to get an understanding for how are the people doing, how are we doing in our relationships with the clients. So I would say that when we have been building strategy as a team, we have been going a lot into the front line to really get a better feel as well for where are we as a business and where we are as a company and a team.
But you've been doing both this kind of interaction and listening both inside of the organization and also out. Yeah. You've personally involved yourself in a lot of these conversations, which has been important in shaping them.
Absolutely. So I think we started a strategy process which was pretty much when I took over as CEO of Securitas back in the beginning of 2018. Right. And we decided, obviously with a good partner from IMD, to really not only look in one dimension, but to go outside. So spending a lot of time with customers to listen. I also spoke quite a lot with other players in the industry to try to get a better perspective. But where we spent the most time was really inside of the organization, and that was really then looking at all the people from the leadership team, but most important, the people who are working closest to the customers in the front line.
Yeah. But when you joined, why did you join Securitas? Securitas, look, this is an old guarding company. You'd worked in technology businesses before.
Yeah.
What was appealing to you to join Securitas?
Securitas has a lot of strengths. First of all, it's a company which was founded in the 1930s. Right. But our development really accelerated from the mid-80s onwards. Right. And it's a company which is built on good values. We have two major families who are the main owners of the business. And they have really stood for good values. They have recruited good leaders who really developed this company in a phenomenal way over a long period of time. Mm. So from the outside, when I was offered the opportunity to join the company, I felt that was really attractive. But then we're also then traditionally a man guarding business. So today we have 370,000 people, but primarily then very people-intensive business. But what I also found really interesting, apart from it being a really good company, is the opportunity that technology and also digitalization is offering.
What was interesting, what you've done, is many companies will basically focus on the core, milk the core, things like that. What you've been doing is you've been talking about strengthening the core, making people proud of guarding again, yeah, but then also transforming the core. Yeah. You've been doing both at the same time. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's really the ambition, because when we are on a technology journey, you can say, to not only then offer people-based solutions, but to offer a combination of people and technology. Right. That's a journey that was started 5-6 years ago. When you think about that, obviously, when you try to drive a change, that means you need to put a lot of emphasis on that. Mm-hmm. But equally, almost 80% of our business today is still the traditional man guarding business. So I think that was one of the basic but quite fundamental insights from the strategy work as well. As we are driving the change towards the future, we also need to take care of the foundation that we have today, and that is really the guarding, and that is where we also spend quite a lot of effort in the strategy process.
But it's fascinating because you've taken, you have 370,000 points of contact around the world.
Yeah.
And the idea of taking those from, and I think it's called observe and report, to anticipate and respond is fundamentally redefining the business that you're in.
Yeah.
I mean, if you tried to compete against some of the high-tech companies without that presence, you would have no advantage.
Absolutely.
But I mean, to take a physical guarding company and bring technology into that. I mean, what's been the challenge for you? Because you've lived in both worlds, right?
Yeah.
You've lived in technology world and guarding world. Now, what's the challenge of bringing technology at the core of a traditional company and really making that change?
Yeah, so I think the presence is important, because if you look at what differentiates Securitas to most other companies, is that we have a lot of really good people out there. 370,000 people in 58 countries. Right. Historically, we haven't been that digitized, so we haven't really been capturing data in a very structured way. So that's a process that we started just a few years ago, to start to really leverage the presence. Mm-hmm. Not only to be able to provide good services on the spot, but also then to leverage all the data. And that is really the change process that we are now in. But when you highlight the challenge of that, obviously we are a big organization. We have been growing organically and through acquisition. So that also means that a lot of the kind of the legacy IT systems and applications and platforms that we have, those we also need to address now. So that we're not only working country by country, but we're also then building platforms so we're able to drive scale and to drive and build innovation on top. And that is a multi-year project, of course. But the conviction is there from me and from the team about the opportunities that this will bring for us in the future.
I mean, it's fascinating when you think about, we are guarding, we're always going to be a guarding company, but we're now becoming a peace of mind company, a business that's focused on security, a business that's focused on safety. I mean, if you think about kind of the trends that are impacting the world today, I mean, those are major trends that, and if you can participate and contribute to that field, that seems to open up huge growth opportunities.
Yeah, it really does, Tom. And that was another thought and a vision that we had in the strategy work. It was not just to build a strategy for the next phase, but also then to discover and to define the purpose of our business. Because we have all of these great people, and people who have then been doing really good work based on solid foundational values. But we hadn't been that good in terms of actually articulating what is the purpose, why is this work so meaningful. And it's like you said, security and safety, those are needs that are fundamental for everyone in society, people and companies alike. So we also then leverage the entire strategy process to go out and ask the organization in different workshops to say, why is this meaningful to you?
Right.
And then we started then to collect all of this information. We start to think about what would be a meaningful purpose. And the fascinating thing was that we did these workshops from Chile, or Santiago in Chile, to Sydney in Australia, and across all of Asia, Europe, and the North American part as well. And we started to see a lot of commonality. And that is where we then discovered, really from within, the purpose that we then formulated, which is we help make your world a safer place.
It was fascinating because I remember at the beginning when we started talking about purpose, there was a lot of your executives who were saying, I'm busy, we don't want to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And then they actually went out and they started having some conversations, and it was hard to stop them. Because it also seemed to empower your leaders as well, recognizing what could happen to them.
Yeah, and they also, exactly, and I think when people then, initial reluctance then really turned into, when can we do this again?
Right.
So we already now have a number of people who were doing this 6-12 months ago who are now running purpose workshops a second or a third time.
Right.
Not then to formulate the purpose, but to think about how can this purpose really influence and guide our strategy and direction as we go forward.
Right. I think that the purpose, I mean, when you look at some of the ways that you're bringing in technology, you're combining it with physical presence, and you're focusing it on a fundamental need in society. It's an exciting business to be in, and it's an exciting opportunity to have.
Yeah, and it's the meaning, Tom, because when we discover this purpose, and then we launched that in the middle of May this year, and what we have seen is that it's really resonated with, I would say, everyone within the company, because this is something from officers that we have working on remote customer locations, to all the people that we have working in different support functions or at the headquarters in the group management team. The purpose is the one thing that unites all of us, and it also provides us guidance in terms of how do we develop and go after more opportunity play that bigger role in the future.
But you have many companies, they come up with very nice, fancy sounding purposes.
Yeah.
And they sound them on the wall, but that's where it stops. They don't bring it into the decision making, they don't bring it into shaping the actions and guiding people, all the way down the organization. How have you taken purpose and actually brought it into the decision making and action mode, shaping Securitas not just in the future, but also today?
Yeah, so I think first of all, it's like I said, we did not rush the process. We spent almost 6-9 months with different purpose workshops, so that we were not really rushing that to ensure one thing, basically, that we define a good purpose that is meaningful for us today and also for the long term. And then we announced that a couple of months ago, but when we did that, we were obviously very excited about it, but we also said this is not something that we're doing just for the next couple of weeks and months now. This is a multi-year journey as well.
Right.
So what we have done is at different levels, from a group management perspective, across the different divisions in the countries as well, organizing workshops and also then making sure now with a communication and engagement plan, which is not a kind of a 6-month plan, this is more like a 12 to 18-month plan to really work with the organization and to make sure that we are gradually building the awareness and also then engagement around the purpose.
What's fascinating also about how you're bringing the purpose to life is you're going back and celebrating your core at the same time you prepare the core for the future.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing back a pride in guarding.
Exactly.
At the same time that you're thinking about, but it's not just guarding like we do it today. It's like guarding that we want to create for the future.
Yes.
And it's actually shaping the agenda. But in any company today, you're under very, very strong short-term pressures. So how do you manage the trade-offs between, let's just say, the short-term pressures and these exciting, amazing opportunities that are there? I mean, how do you as a leader kind of manage those two tensions at the same time?
Yeah, that's obviously one of the fascinating parts of running and leading a team and a company like Securitas, because we are out there in the market every day, and it's like you say, I mean, there are lots of competitors out there. We know that we're leading the industry, we are convinced that we have the right purpose and the right strategy to win for the future. But then obviously we cannot spend all the effort on investing in the future only. We need to take care of the business today.
Right.
And that kind of friction, I think, is also something which is quite healthy, because it also means that we are also responsible in terms of the money that we are investing and the bets that we are also making to really strengthen the business for the long term, while also then taking care of the midterm. But this is never easy. I mean, this is just the reality of running a business, but also doing it well.
But it's interesting for you because you're both, as you say, you're optimizing a business that you have today and taking advantage of this guards. You're building new foundations in technology.
Yeah.
You're building bridges across the organization. You're redefining purpose. You're bringing technology in, and you're creating a new business for the future. So you as a leader are essentially leading not just two. You're leading 3 agendas at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you balance those personally? How do you in your own mind as a leader kind of keep in mind these 3 different agendas that you're running?
Yeah, so I think we have in our strategy, we have also defined what are the things that we need to do in the short term. So we have a pretty clear agenda for the next 6, 12, 18 months. And that's always an important job for me as well, to make sure that we are working as a group management team. We really own this strategy.
Right.
Together then on behalf of the entire company. But we divided our then priorities in different time frames, essentially, to make sure that we are doing the things that will make us stronger in the short term. But we're also not forgetting about really making and driving the fundamental changes that will mean that Securitas is winning and leading the business and the industry 5-10 years from now. But I would say the main way to manage that is also to look at it in terms of time, so that we are not doing one or the other, but we're actually balancing between the two.
Right. How have your customers reacted to this? How have your customers and your other stakeholders reacted to this strategy, this journey that you're embarking on?
Yeah, I think they are excited because many of our customers, those are people who are working with security and safety then for a number of organizations, and those could be global organizations where we serve them in tens of countries around the world, or it could also be a local customer. They buy into the strategy. We asked them quite a lot also when we were building the strategy for their feedback, to say, you know us quite well. We are thinking that these are going to be the best roles and things that we can do in the future. What do can you relate to that? And do you think that will also help and address your concerns and needs for the long term? So we also got a number of customers engaged. But then I would also say when we launched the purpose as well, and we started to talk a little bit about the purpose of helping making your world a safer place, that is also something that they are almost engaging in and feeling that they are proud of being part of that as well, because that's something which is meaningful not just for Securitas but also for all of us in the partnership.
But with your customers are also in a very fast-changing world. I mean, the pressures of them on security and risk are changing every day, and actually, what they're expecting from you, if you actually live your purpose, is you're essentially not just being a supplier to them.
Yeah.
You're actually working with them to actually define and then address the risks that are coming. I mean, that's also a very different relationship with a customer. And how do you manage these different kind of You're no longer just selling to them, you're creating with them.
Creating value with them, and I think that is really part of the strategy as well. We are striving to be more of a partner as opposed to just a simple provider of a service. Mm-hmm. But one of the insights from the strategy work as well was that to achieve that position, we also need to think quite carefully about how do we also engage with our customers. So we also built our what we call a client excellence framework to make sure that we become better at not only then thinking about which are the customers that we believe are attractive for us to go after, but after we win them, how do we also then develop those relationships over time? Right. And that also means that we are trying to go a lot deeper, and that obviously also means that there is a certain selection process as well, because not everyone wants to be on that journey. Some people are just saying, we like your high quality guarding today, we can consider that for the future, but we're not really there yet. So we also have to listen to the customer and see where are we, but obviously trying to engage them and to get them on that journey. And I think the one good thing is that they typically like the quality and the provisioning of the services today, but they're also buying into the long term. So the opportunity for us, if we continue to do a good job, is really to get them along with us on that journey.
And helping them to solve the problems that are kind of facing them every day.
Absolutely.
You as a CEO have a couple of other important stakeholders. They're called a board of directors and outside investors. I mean, how are you working with the board of directors and also with outside investors on this journey?
Yeah, so I think from a board perspective and owner's perspective, we are blessed in Securitas, and this is one of the main reasons we are as successful as we are in the last 30 years. We have two strong owners represented by two families that are they have a significant share of the total ownership. Mm-hmm. They are also with a very long-term kind of development always at the highest part of the agenda. So I think when we talked about the strategy, we are a fine and good company today, but we have an ambition to take this to something quite different in the next 5, 10, 15 years. They were excited and they're also fully supportive. But having said that, it's one thing to be part of the journey and also then to believe in the future, but they obviously also demanding results today. And I think that is the kind of the healthy friction that we also have as we are running and driving the business for the future.
I mean, that's actually a good tension to have. I mean, one of the things that we see in many companies is, we see many companies going broke.
Yeah.
Old successful companies going broke because they don't create the future. Other management companies are just kind of milking that, and they basically, how to position a strong incumbent company like yours to both deliver today, but also to create and shape the future at the same time.
Exactly.
That's what's exciting to do, and that's also a challenge for many leaders.
It's a huge challenge, but I mean, we're also growing and we are developing, and I think that is the kind of the duality that we just have to manage. We have to deliver today, but we also have to think about how do we plan so that we are also leading the industry tomorrow.
How do you bring learning into a strategy process on a continuous basis? Because right now you're dealing with a lot of things that there's not an answer to. You're creating something new. You're not entering an industry, you're creating a market. You're not entering selling a new product or service, you're creating a value proposition. So at the same time you're delivering and you're learning. I mean, how do you bring learning into your organization on a consistent basis?
Yeah, I think first of all, we spent quite a lot of time with our strategy process. Right. But then we also said that learning from the past as well, we also know that building a strategy is just the first step.
That's the easy part.
Exactly. Executing and implementing is really the bigger challenge, but also the bigger opportunity.
Right.
So we also now have firmly every 3 months on the agenda also for the entire group management. Strategy is then one of the key parts that we are owning and that we're also then assessing where are we doing well with relation to what we said we were going to do and where are we not really progressing and then why. So I think that is one important mechanism to make sure that we stay disciplined and that we really drive the strategy execution. But then we've also said in terms of a lot of the innovation and the changes where we are making bets also in terms of how we drive the business for the future. There we're spending quite a lot of time also looking outside in. So I'm also making sure with clients that we are leading some of the pilot projects with in terms of data and digitalization, for example. Our teams are developing the products with the clients now. But we've also said that all of us in the group management, including myself, we're also trying to spend quite a lot of time with those clients to also get their feedback and also to be able to check are we on the right path.
There seems to be two buzzwords that seem to be floating in business world today. One is obviously digital and the second is disruption. I mean, digital is actually at the core of what you do.
Yeah.
Because you're actually talking about how do we use multiple ways of technology to replace physical presence with multiple ways of having a presence and then using the data to come forward.
Yeah.
And in terms of disruption, I mean, there's constantly innovators who are moving into your space because everybody's looking at security and risk as growth industries,
Absolutely.
as exciting opportunities.
Yeah.
How do you keep up with the disruption side? How do you keep kind of a disruptive lens in terms of your own thinking so that you don't get disrupted by some startup just coming along?
Yeah, so what we have done, Tom, is that we also took a pretty brutal view in terms of ourselves and our own capabilities that we had a few years ago. And we said that in an increasingly digital and data-driven world, which are the assets that we have, first of all? We have physical presence with our great people. We have our values. We have our brand. We have our monitoring capabilities, etc., to be able to connect remotely also our services. But then we also realized that to be data-driven and to really drive more of a digital type of strategy and to be able to launch new services, there were a number of competencies that we were simply lacking. So part of the effort that we have taken is that we've also invested in a fairly significant team by our standards with people who are really good in terms of digital services, in terms of digital interaction, creating the tools, etc., to be able to digitalize the front line. So our officers are less pen and paper and much more digitally connected. But then also investing quite a lot of people who are then looking at how are we able to leverage the data that we generate, because we generate with our presence millions of data points every month. So that was another area. So we also now have a team of experts in machine learning and AI as well, who are also starting now to really develop some early but really interesting products and services as well, where we're able to then enhance the security that we provide into our customers.
What's interesting is that the old style guards could look at technology as a threat to them, but you're also creating it as an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Because you're actually offering new opportunities for what the guard can do, the tools, you're educating, so you're transforming guarding itself not as a threat from technology, but as a partner with the technology.
Yeah, and the value that one individual officer can add when he or she is enabled through better technology, more knowledge than in their hands, essentially, that can increase significantly. And I think that is also the big opportunity, because that means we can train our people more, we can equip them with more knowledge, better tools, which will also mean that they will add more value, we can pay them more, and we can also then be on a better journey for all the great employees that we have in the company.
And you can develop more people.
Absolutely.
You're developing skills, you're offering different kind of opportunities. And this idea of turning technology as an enemy as a partner that actually helps us grow is actually something that's also very hard to do, because many companies will say, we have my IT department over here, my technology department, and here's our core.
So it's not really either or. We are looking at it as more of the combination of people and technology and the knowledge that we are then deriving through being more data-driven.
You've talked about using technology not as a business but as bridges, as an enabler and an empower. I mean, one of the things which is most exciting about what you're doing is you're using technology to enable and empower your people to do more, as opposed to threatening their job. And you're using, where people used to spend time on more routine internal activities, you're actually empowering them to do more in the markets and with customers in areas that excite them as well.
Exactly.
So it's a very exciting thing. Yeah. I mean, as you look forward today, what do you see as the biggest challenges for you as an individual leader? Because there's this huge agenda for delivery, there's a huge agenda for create, there's a huge opportunity, purpose, value, all these things. What's your biggest personal challenge as you're looking at leading this journey for a company like Securitas?
Well, I think we have an attractive strategy and also a wanted position in terms of where we want to go.
Exactly.
To drive the change, I think one aspect is the size of the organization, because we are 370,000 people. Some things you figure them out and you want to make the change right now. I think so.
Patience is a good skill for you.
Patience
Exactly.
is one important skill.
Right.
But it's important then also when you have a big organization that you also have clarity in terms of where do you want to go.
Right.
That you have a clearly defined purpose that is helping and also defining, so you can almost work your way back and say these are the steps that we need to take to be able to realize that ambition. But then I think the other aspect is what we touched upon earlier as well. We need to deliver today, but we also then need to continuously make sure that we are taking the steps and investing to make sure that we are leading the transformation not only of our own company but also the entire industry. And I think that kind of friction, that is obviously one that I'm constantly thinking about, how do we manage that in a good way.
I mean, working with you, one of the things that you do well is you make sure it's not your journey, it's our journey.
Absolutely.
And it's basically getting people in the organization as excited about what you're trying to create, and being partners in wanting to actually drive that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen a number of, you have an executive from the US, and it was fascinating one time when we were talking about what kind of improvements that he could make. At the beginning was kind of protective, and then he kept pushing further and further. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Why can't we do that?
Yeah.
And when you see executives become excited about possibility, as opposed to being burdened by today, it opens up a different light with them. Mm. And I think that's one of the things that you as a leader do extremely well.
No, I appreciate that, Tom, and I genuinely like to work with people, but I also realize that the success that we have had in the last 30 years, that is obviously to some extent good leadership, but it's always about the team.
Right.
Success that we're building for the next 5, 10, 15 years, that will also, that's a fundamental transformation that will require really strong engagement, teamwork. So I think all the time that we took as a leadership team in terms of investing and also engaging hundreds, if not thousands of people in the strategy work, I'm convinced that's going to pay off as we then really drive in the transformation now.
I think so, and I think the future is more is opening up new opportunities, and how do we actually choose those?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your ambition for Securitas in, let's just say, 5 years? I mean, what'll be successful? What's success for you personally as a leader?
I would say if we are a good way down the path of developing our strategy, that is obviously one. Right. How can we then measure that? Well, that would mean that we have a higher added value, more kind of a knowledge and data driven as well approach in terms of how we are working. Mm-hmm. That will mean that we're adding more value to the clients. It will also mean that we have better engagement for all the employees, because they will also be equipped with better tools, mm-hmm. More knowledge. And if we do those things well, and we do that at scale, then we should also have been able to improve the profitability as well. So we're also then generating stronger returns to our shareholders as well.
And growth.
And the growth.
And the growth, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Magnus.
Thank you, Tom. Great talking to you.
Great talking to you as well.
Thank you.